So for example, if I play this ballad here and I'm comping in a ballad style, the style will change, but my voicings won't change. So for zone number 1 of my comping, I'm going to be using right-hand rootless voicings.
You and I both know in 2025, information is not your problem. We can go on the internet, we can go on YouTube, we can get access to anything we want to learn about jazz piano. But the number one thing holding students back, probably holding you back right now, is a lack of planning and direction. Now, a lot of students have no idea what they need to learn right now to move them to their goal. So what do? They learn as much as possible. Now, unfortunately, that is a complete waste of time because a lot of the information you're learning right now, you do not need for your current goal. And that's why in this first part of my 4-part planning series, I'm going to be giving you a planning guide and walking you through how to plan for your goals and giving you the exact information, the exact steps that you need to learn to essentially sprint to your jazz piano goal in 2025. My name is Brendan Lowe, creator and founder of Jazz Piano School. Go to jazzpianoschool.com/2025-guide, jazzpianoschool.com/2025-guide to get my free 2025 planning guide that I will be covering and using in these free sessions. And by the way, it's free. Just enter your email address in and our systems will send you that free guide. I'll be using that guide in this planning session and the upcoming 3 sessions as well to really help you nail down your 2025 goals and tell you and teach you exactly what jazz piano steps and information you need to learn to get you to your goal the quickest way possible in 2025. With that being said, let's dive right in.
This is going to be the 2025 Jazz Piano School planning series. Now, I've been doing this, for the past, I think, almost 4 years. My name is Brendan Lowe, creator and founder of Jazz Piano School, and I love helping students get started in the new year, planning efficiently, planning effectively to really reach their goals and know exactly what to do. So just give me a second here. I need to pull up a chat window. If you're listening to the replay of this is a live stream. And so this is going to be a live teaching demonstration, a live masterclass. So I have a live audience here that is on the live stream. If you're looking to be on the live streams, you can do that by going to jazzpianoschool.com and you can sign up on the email list and get on the email list for the live streams. And that's how you can get notified of the live stream, which is pretty cool. And it's really fun to interact with all of you, obviously, and, talk to you, answer your questions, all that jazz. So, let me see here. Did this change? Sorry, my chat. Oh, there we go. Okay, great. Lars, hey Lars from Norway. Mike, good to see you guys, or good to have you guys here. Franco, hey Susanna. So if you haven't done so, go ahead and download the guide. The link is there. Now, if you're watching the replay, you can download the guide by going to jazzpianoschool.com/2025-guide. jazzpianoschool.com/2025-guide. That will bring you to a page where you can put your email address in to receive the guide. So our system will send you the guide and you can follow along with these sessions and use the guide. For everyone that's on the live stream, all you have to do, because you showed up here, is click on the link above and you can download the guide there. That's exactly what I'm going to be talking about. That's what I'm going to be referring to. So I highly recommend you do that now because it's going to be a very important piece of information. Now, this first session is an intro session, and what it's going to do essentially is I'm going to walk you through the guide. I'm going to talk about the different areas and how to use them, and talk about how we're going to go about filling them out, talk about planning. So there's not going to be that much playing actually in today's session. In the other sessions, I'm going to go way deep into the goals. of the planning sessions. But for this one, I might play a little bit. I'm going to demonstrate a little bit, but I am going to kind of walk all of you through that. Now, if you're listening on the podcast or again on YouTube of the recording of this, that's all that this is going to be. But it's very, very important that you listen to this because I'm going to tell you how to effectively use this guide and work towards your goals in 2025. Now, the majority of the issue that happens for students coming into the new year and throughout the year isn't due to a lack of time. It's usually not due to a lack of time to practice, right? Where students get off is a lack of direction. It's a lack of focus and it's a lack of direction, right? Because there's different types of issues that arise. You may be working on concepts, education, topics that are not aligned with your goal, and you're working really diligently on them. You're working very, very hard on them. But then you go to try to play your goal, whatever that might be. Let's say you want to play a solo piano ballad, and it's still not working out. You still don't know what to do. So that issue right there, that problem, that becomes a problem that occurs around the content that you're using to make progress in your goal. You're not using the right education. You're not learning the right topics. You're not practicing the right thing. So that becomes an issue right there. The other issue that starts to happen is a lot of scattered information with no set curriculum, meaning you might be working on some of the correct materials for your goal, but then you might switch to something completely different and then jump back or jump over there. And a lot of times this happens in memberships. This happens in jazz piano learning memberships where there's so much information that you're really just hopping all over the place and choosing what you want to learn on any given day. Now, that also doesn't really lead to much traction in you making substantial amounts of progress towards your goal. Think about it. If you're jumping all about and you're trying to learn a lot of different things, or you're trying to, one day you feel like learning ballads, and then the next day you feel like working on a little lick that someone showed you in the membership, right? That's really not going to amount to much of anything at all. And that's why it's so important to really use the guide that I'm giving you. I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to talk about how and when to switch if you do want to switch, right? You don't have to get locked into 1 year or anything else. But anyway, so a little bit of a spiel about what's going to happen today. That took 5 minutes. Fantastic. We got lots and lots of time here. If you are here, go ahead and write your name in the chat. Let me know where you're coming from. The other thing I want to let you guys know is that a lot of the education that you're going to receive through this planning series in the intro and the other three sessions are going to be centered around the the Jazz Piano School materials and the new proficiency course I've released and the parts of the proficiency course I'll be releasing in the future. Now, the New Year's sale is still happening. If you like my education and you like Jazz Piano School, you can go to jazzpianoschool.com/holiday. On that page, it's going to give you an opportunity to buy any sort of course. You can upgrade to Lifetime Elite. You can get a membership. You can purchase courses at a massive discount for the New Year's sale. The other thing I'd like to let you know is that the mastermind, my Inner Circle mastermind, is now open as well. It was open previously when it first started, but I reopened it for the New Year's. If you're looking to work with me and get customized lesson plans, you can find that option on the holiday sales page there. And if you want to talk to me more about what that might entail, it is a live program. That's where I can really help you make the most amount of results, obviously, when I am teaching you personally, and I can get my ears on your playing, and then I can write you custom lesson plans. So if you looked at that before at the beginning of the year, the price is a little bit less now because you're not getting a 9-month program. You're getting a 5-month program, so it is a little bit of a discount, which is fun. And I think that's it. So again, if you are watching the replay, go to jazzpianoschool.com/2025 guide to get the guide. So what I want you guys to do is pull up the guide. How many of you, if you have the guide in front of you, go ahead and say, yes, I have the guide in front of me, or just type, yes, I have the guide. This is going to be extremely helpful. Oh, I see. Okay, sorry. I'm talking to myself. This is going to be extremely helpful as you begin to work through the guide. Okay? So I am just going to pull this up here myself. Now, there's going to be a goal area right up front that you're going to be looking at, or you're going to see there. Now, all the goals are going to be assessed by quarters, All right, so every single quarter, you're going to see a goal, and that is where you're going to write your goal. Now, I'm going to explain the goal choices and what you're going to do very, very soon. But these are going to be your general goals, okay, on this first page here. So on that first page, you'll divide your goals and your planning up by quarters, okay? Glad to see that you guys have it in front of you. That's fantastic. So all your goals are going to be rotating by quarters. So quarterly is a really great way to focus in on your goal and not have it be too substantial to where you can't be flexible or if you want to change your goal, but it's also not a short enough amount of time where you're not building momentum and gaining enough traction in one particular area. So I always encourage students to work on a goal for at least 3 months. That's how long the accelerator program is, right? And so that's one of our live programs, but at least 3 months, that'll really help you build traction in that goal. And it's not to say you can't work on multiple goals at once too. I'm going to talk to you about that, how we handle multiple goals and how we're going to do that. Anyway, that's going to be that first section there. Now, as you continue down onto the second page, this is where the types of goals that are going to be available to you come up. Now, this is where students really start to either gain the most amount from this particular session, or if you're not watching this session, students really tend to kind of flounder at this point like a fish out of water because there's so much jazz piano education out there. How do we work on everything to achieve our goal, right? And the answer is, well, you really can't work on everything at once. You have to build a brick wall brick by brick. So that's why we're breaking up our goals quarterly, and that's why we are working on our goals very slow, very methodical, so that we can get some traction and build some momentum. So goal number 1 is comping. These are all focused around our goals for piano. And it's not to focus on the goal for example, like I want to learn my fourth voicings, right? Or I want to learn my drop twos, or I want to learn my blues or my like a blues lick in F, okay? Those aren't the best goals to set for yourself because they're geared towards information. They're geared towards education and not a substantial fulfillment of your why. Like, why do you want to learn that blues lick? Why do you want to learn the fourth voicings? Or why do you want to learn two-hand spread voicings, right? A lot of students email me almost every single day, and this is what I hear people desire, which I understand that, but there's so much more to it. And the important part about this is that if you can get really specific about why you want that particular type of information. Now, don't get me wrong. It's not everybody. Some people are on the opposite side of the spectrum, which I'm about to talk to you about, which is really, really great. I think you should actually start more or less what I'm about to describe, which is I want to learn how to play in the solo piano ballad style, like the cocktail style, right? So maybe that's your goal. That's a better place to start off with, rather than saying, I want to learn my two-hand spread voicings with flat nines and sharp nines, right? So it's always better to have more of a stylistic goal, right? I want to be able to improvise in a solo piano fashion because I want to be able to improvise at home. I'm not playing gigs, right? So we want to attach a very, a tangible outcome to our goal. Like for a real life situation, a real life scenario that applies to our life. If you have a goal of playing in a group or playing in a band or playing with a vocalist where you're going to accompany them, or playing with an instrumentalist where you're going to accompany them, goal number 1 is going to be the goal you want to focus on, comping, because that's the only thing you need to be able to do in order to achieve that goal, is you just need to be able to comp and accompany the vocalist, right? Now, for a lot of you out there, you may have no bands you're playing with. You may have no groups. You may have no aspirations to play with anyone. And the only thing that you want to do is you just want to sit at home and play jazz, right? Jazz piano. You want to play for your friends, and a solo piano style is the only thing you want to be able to do. Now, if that's the case, goal number 2 is going to be the goal that you want to focus on, right? Goal number 2. So goal number 2, by the way, is broken down into 3 different styles. Your solo piano format, or your solo piano approach to your goals, is broken down into 3 styles: ballads, slow swing, and medium and fast swing. Okay, now the tempos on these are going to range a little bit, so I left these off, but for the most part, your ballads is going to be about 76 BPM and down. Your slow swing is going to be about, 76 BPM, give or take, and up to about 100 or 105. And then your medium and fast is 105 up from there, right? So again, the more kind of specific about the style that we want to play, if I say I want to play ballads, I want to play beautiful ballads, right? Right? That would be a goal. So you're just going to work on ballads. If you wanted to play slow swing, right? That would be your goal there. So depending upon what type of tune you want to play, it's going to drastically let you know, or differentiate, I should say, your approach, your skill sets, what you're learning. So that's very, very important that you pick a lot of the things that are listed here for solo piano. Now, a lot of you, moving on, have a goal of improvisation. If you have a goal of improvisation, this can fit into many categories, right? We can improvise in essentially, I shouldn't say many categories, 2 categories. We can improvise in a solo piano way, or we can improvise in a group style, right? I'll say that again. This is such a huge factor that I see students kind of miss this, and it's such a big deal. You can really learn improvisation in so many different ways. You might go on YouTube. You might even be a member right now of a membership website. And let's say you want to improvise in a solo piano style. You might be learning all improvisation in a group style, and you would have no idea. And then you go to play solo piano and be like, wait, this is not translating to my goal. The information that I'm being taught is not translating to the life scenario, right? The realistic life scenario that I'm trying to replicate and create. It's not translating. And that goes for a lot of stuff, trying to learn different styles, funk, gospel, stuff like that. I mean, there's so many different capacities that you can learn information in that will not translate at all to your life situation on how you play piano, how you approach piano, if you're playing with groups only, if you're playing solo piano, right? So many different things. So with improvisation, you have exactly 2 styles you can learn improv in: solo piano and a group style, right? Now, depending upon the style that you want to learn, that's going to split into different types of education. So your solo piano education is one style. Your group improvisation is another style. It's another methodology, okay? Now, I didn't list those 2 styles here, but these are the things you need to be thinking about for your improvisation. And comping can be done in a solo piano way or a group style, so that actually holds true for both of those goals. Does anyone have any questions at this point that I can help answer? If so, go ahead and put them in the chat. Otherwise, I'm going to move on, right? I'm going to move on. But go ahead and put your questions in the chat, and I will keep going, and I can revisit them. So let me give you some scenarios now of your goals, okay? So again, just to give you guys a little heads up on what's going to be happening, I'm going to be covering every one of these goals moving forward. And I've done a lot of education about this. I've done a lot of masterclasses around this and live streams, but I continue to do this because it's really, really important on how you approach your education. And if you're practicing alone, if you're a member of JPS, if you're working on with me in my live programs, my live masterminds, all this is very important. So let's say you are at home alone playing solo piano. This is the majority of students, right? I would say the majority of students come to me, say, Brendan, I want to be able to play beautiful, beautiful ballads, okay? And so I'm going to pull up a chart here of a ballad. and just walk you through this real quick. So if I were to say, I want to play a ballad, that would be your goal, right? So what you're going to be working on is all the elements from the solo piano ballad goal, okay, the elements I have listed there. And that is going to be essentially your goals for the quarter. So this is the tune My Ship. This is a fantastic tune. So if I just give you, again, I'm going to go way deeper into this, but if I give you a quick example of this, step number 1 under ballads for solo piano, for your goal solo piano, is right-hand shells with left-hand bass notes, right? That doesn't even include the melody. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to this tune, My Ship, and I'm just going to play the shells with my right hand exactly as the step says in my left-hand bass notes. And I want to try to voice lead through this with a metronome, just in with a little bit of time, right? So here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So on and so forth. Okay? That is the very, very first step to playing cocktail style ballads. Right there. I just demonstrated it for you. Right? That is the very first step. That's what you want to be able to accomplish over all tunes. Now, it goes much, much further in depth, and that's where I come in. That's where the membership comes in, right? What exercises do you play? How do you approach your practice? How do you organize your practice to learn all the shells, learn the voicing movements, right? Learn all this different types of stuff, okay? That's where the membership and the live programs come in. But this is the first step. You can totally do this on your own. So you need to learn your shells first, right? Of all your chords, you would work through practice exercises, and then you'd work up to doing the first step that's listed on your guide plan, right? So, Susanna says, what goals should I work on to play a jazz standard more fluently and memorize more complex jazz tunes, solo piano style, right? So that's going to be it's a solo piano goal, Susanna. And again, when you say solo piano, you have to pick a style. Right? So what style are you referring to? Because the 3 different styles and tempos of jazz piano have completely different approaches and methods. So you got to get very clear on what approach, what method you're trying to practice. So are you trying to practice ballads, right? Which is letter A, style A. Are you trying to practice or get better at slow swing, which is style B? Remember, slow swing is going to be tempo markings from about 76 BPM to 100 BPM, 105. Or are you trying to get better at medium and fast swing? So the language we use is really important, right? And I can already tell from your question, you may not have been thinking about those things yet, right? So when you ask questions or when you tell yourself or give yourself a goal, we want to get very clear by using the guide that I've sent you to really indicate what we're going after, right? And that's going to be one of the main things that's going to help focus you and channel you in 2025 to get very, very specific so that you can make a lot of progress, right? So you say, Susanna says, I mix up styles with Latin rhythms and it comes out spontaneously. So again, Latin and swing are really separate styles, right? So if you want to get better at Latin, like your Latin solo piano style, that's a goal. That's what you would write down. And then you'd have to pick a tempo marking, right? If you want to get better at your swing style, okay, that would be your goal. So Latin and swing have very different approaches. So you really can't combine all of that into kind of one big category. And if you lump a lot of your goals in like that, again, like I said, it's really like trying to organize through a whole mess of stuff. You really don't get anywhere. So I would say, Susanna, you need to be specific. And this is where we're going to pick our goals right now. And I want you guys to write in the chat some of your goals. But that was just an example of how we would go about doing this. Let's go back to picking our goals, okay? Nancy says, can you explain what you mean by the shell? Is it the melody, not plus the 3rd or the 7th? Yes, exactly, Nancy. So your shells are going to be your 3rd and your 7th. Whoops. Your 3rd and your 7th of your chords. So there's no melody here. All I'm doing here is I'm just playing the 3rd and the 7th. Now, you see how the chord symbol says F6. So an F6 chord actually has the 6 as a shell, not the 7, right? And all this information is kind of information that if you don't know, it's stuff that you need to work on in order to accomplish step number 1 of your cocktail ballad style, right? So 3 and 6 here, going to 3 and 7 here, going to 7 and 3. So your shells are 7 and 3, or 3 and 7, or 6 and 3, and 3 and 6. And I'm just voice leading through them with my left hand bass notes. All right, so what I want you to do here is go back to page 1, okay? And I want you to pick your goal for quarter 1. Now, you can write down, this is going to be a little bit redundant in our goals, but I think it's actually extremely helpful to do this twice. So for your goals, I only want you to pick 2 goals, okay? And if you just want to pick 1, that's okay too. Keeping it more simple is actually better, right? The more simple you keep things, the better it's going to be. So I want you to go back to the first page, the second page really, where the goals are in your Q1 goals. And I believe if you download this, you can type right into the PDF. It's editable. It's a difficult word to say. So I want you to type in your goal or write it down if you printed your goal sheet out. And I want you to write down one of the goals, or 2, up to 2. Do not write 3 goals in though, okay? I'll talk about that in just a second. So write down goal number 1, comping, and maybe goal number 2, solo piano. And again, if you write down, So yeah, just pick your goal. I'll get into that other stuff in just a second. So just write down maybe or goal number 3, improvisation. You can just write down goal number 3, improvisation. All right? And once you're done, I want you guys to put in the chat what you've written down for your quarter 1 2025 goal. I want you guys to write in the chat what you put down, and everyone who's on here will be able to see the goals that the other students have put down on their goal planning guidebook, okay? Again, if you've just shown up, you don't have the guidebook, you can go to jazzpianoschool.com/2025 guide to get this free guidebook, 2025 guidebook that I'm going over and helping all the students, Jazz Piano School followers and students use. So Mouse put goal number 3, Franco put number 1 mainly, plus number 2. Great. Just kind of seeing a couple of what people have put. So improvisation. And then Franco wanted comping and solo piano. If anyone else wants to share, please go ahead and do that. Okay. So, fantastic. All right. If you feel like sharing, go for it. If not, that's completely okay too. But I think it's great for the other students to see what goals everyone else is doing. Now, here's the thing, right? Within the goals that you've just written down, the first page is going to keep you on track for your goal. Right? So I would print this out and have it at your piano, because again, we lose the internet is an endless rabbit hole of attention drawing stuff, right? Scrolling on Instagram, Facebook, ads, all these cool things that lure us into kind of learning and gospel lines and cool folk things and different types of movements, right? Pop stuff, Latin stuff, right? All this stuff. It can lure us in and take us away from our goal and what we really need to work on to make progress, right? And this is one of the things that's going to help you make the most amount of progress, right? If you really want to get serious about your jazz piano's progress, this is what's going to do it, okay? So George says, I'm trying to complete goal number 1 before you release 2 and 3. Yes, George is talking about the proficiency, the Proficient Jazz Pianist bundle that I've just released, and I'm going to be releasing the solo piano goal in a couple of months, and then the improvisation goal after that. So Lars says goal number 1. Okay, great. So each goal has different, as you can see on the second page, different kind of like, it's broken down into your steps, all right? So what we're going to do here is I'm going to work through this real quickly. So if you've chosen goal number 1, zone number 1, goal number 1, I got a a leaf blower right outside my window. Love that. Love that during a live stream. If you've worked on zone number one, or excuse me, if you put down goal number one, comping, zone number one is going to be right-hand rootless voicings, left-hand bass notes. All right, and the style, right, of comping will change your approach. So, for example, if I play this ballad here and I'm comping in a ballad style, the style will change, but my voicings won't change. So for zone number one of my comping, I'm going to be using right-hand rootless voicings. Okay, so for my 6th chord, I'm just going to be using a 6 voicing. My D7, you know, I'm just going to be using regular rootless voicings now without the extensions and parentheses that they're showing on the chart. Rootless voicing, rootless voicing, rootless voicing. Right, rootless voicing, rootless voicing. Okay, minor 7 flat 5s. I'm not going to go into that now. But the strategy here is right-hand rootless voicings with left-hand bass notes. That's zone number one on the piano, right? And that's what you're going to work on for comping number one. That's zone number one. Now your test here, right? And for everything, and I'm going to go more into this. This is why this is just an intro. I had to do an intro for all of this. There's little tests that you can take to test yourself, and that's exactly what's in my Proficient Jazz Pianist course. To test yourself, you would put this at a ballad tempo and comp through this, and if you can make no less than 3 mistakes throughout the entire tune, you have your ballad comping down, and you really want to make it a tune you've never seen before. You should be able to open up to any page, any ballad, and just comp through it like this. Right, so all I'm doing is zone one. Like, that's all I'm demonstrating and working on is zone one of my comping. You see that? And now we need to ask ourselves, what tools do we need to make this happen? Now, it's one of the things that the guide, I really couldn't put into as much information into the guide because I didn't want to overcomplicate things as possible, but for one, we need to know our right-hand rootless voicings, like the back of our hand. To accomplish zone one of goal one, we need to know our right-hand rootless voicings like the back of our hand, because when we go to test ourselves, like I just did, if you're making mistakes and you don't know your rootless voicing for a D7 chord, you're not going to be able to pass the test, right? And so that's what we need to practice. We need to work on our right-hand rootless voicings through the different chords, through our major 7s, through our D7s, through our G7s. Now that's a lot, right? And that's why it's really good to get focused in on our goals for the year, because we really want to stay on top of our goal and not let our mind wander, right? We don't want to kind of like start at this and then kind of, I can't do it. Like, I'll move on to something else. Like, yes, it's hard. It's meant to be hard. Learning jazz is hard. We need to stick with the hard stuff in order to get better and reach the goals that we're trying to reach. It's not going to be like taking a magic pill. I wish it was, but it's not. So we have to stick with the hard stuff, the stuff that we don't know, in order to reach our goal. So that's an example of, if I were to put down comping zone one, that's what I would be working on for my comping zone one. Now, let's say you put down solo piano, slow swing. Right? Solo piano, slow swing. Step one is harmonize under right hand and add left hand bass notes 1, 7, 1, 3, or 1, 10. Right? So again, guys, try not to kind of overthink this. I'm going to go really in depth into all these steps in the future planning sessions. Actually, let's stay with the ballad here because I have a ballad pulled up on the chart. So for the ballads, if I were to move on, let's say I can do step one, and I've tested out of that. Now, the test is always to open up to a random ballad and test yourself through that. So let's see, is there a random ballad close by? I doubt it, but I'm trying to see if there's another ballad close by in the real book that I can bring up. No, that's okay. This is going to break my teaching momentum. I'm going to go back to my ship. So anyway, the test is to open up to a random ballad and be able to move through the ballad and play just the shells with your left-hand bass notes. That's exactly step number 1 with fewer than 3 mistakes. Okay, that's the test. If you can do that, you've passed. You passed. You can move on to step 2. This is exactly how my proficiency course works. Right? So step 2 now is we're adding the melody with right-hand shells and left-hand bass notes. So essentially what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add my melody into this. So I'm going to play my melody with the shells. So here we go. So I'm going to play my melody, bass note, shells. Right? That's all I'm doing. So I'm just doing step number 2 now. Here we go. Sorry. So I just went through the first 8 bars, melody with right-hand shells underneath my melody with my left-hand bass notes. That's step number 2. Okay? So that's exactly what you'd be working on for your goal. All right? And finally, improvisation is going to be the same. We can use improvisation in a various number of ways, and it's unlike solo piano and comping. Like I said before, if your goal is improv, and I know a couple people put down, improvisation, you really want to split your improv into 2 different types of approaches. So you want to split it into solo piano or group. Solo piano or group. These are 2 completely different skill sets. These are 2 completely different skill sets. So do you want to learn improvisation in a solo piano style or a group style because you have plans on improvising with other musicians, right? These are 2 different, completely different sets of skills, all right? So you have to know that before you go into your goals. James says, comping, rhythm, permutations, my goal. Great, James. That's fantastic, working on comping and rhythm. So for improvisation, and again, these are the tiers. These are the steps. I've kind of broken them into tiers because we have so many steps here. You could work on tier 1, step 2. You could work on tier 2, step 7, step 6, wherever you're at, right? And again, what I'm trying to say here too is that if you pick a step, the other steps that come before that should be at a pretty decent level, right? We don't want to jump around with steps. These are curriculum-based steps, meaning every step that comes after the step you just worked on is building an advanced layer on top of the foundation that you've built. Now, if you don't have a foundation, you can't really add on the future steps, all right? So let's go down to execution. Execution. Now, slightly redundant, but that's okay. The execution of this is going to be on the next page after planning. So execution is taking our plan, taking the planning page and breaking it down now into the goal and exactly what step it is that you're going to work on. For example, let me take James's example. So James, this is a great example here. So James's goal is goal number 1. It's comping, right? He wants to work on comping to play in a group or comp for others or accompany people. He wants to work on his rhythmic permutations. So rhythm, right? Now, James, I would offer, so for this particular goal, you would write goal and step. So you would say, I will work on, put comping, and then you would say, I didn't list rhythmic permutations. That's a very, very specific goal. But you can put on, I would encourage you to write what zone. So what zone of comping do you want to work on? Are you trying to work on your zone 2 rhythmic permutations? right? Are you trying to work on zone 3? Because each zone of the piano is going to be a different type of voicing. That's why the zones are so important. So down here in zone 1, I use rootless voicings and bass notes. In zone 2, I use rootless voicings in 1s and 7s. In zone 3, I use rootless voicings, drop 2s. And in zone 4, I use octaves and left-hand rootless voicings. Now your permutations, your rhythm, and any rhythmic type of material you want to work on for your comping, James, can be worked on in any of those 4 zones. So, James, you may not know your drop 2s. You may not be great with your drop 2s in zone 3. You may not be good with your 2-hand voicings, right? So you want to pick a zone for your comping and not just have it be so random as to any type of voicing or any type of area on the piano. Get specific about where you want to start to improve your rhythmic permutations and in what zone with what voicing. So I would say my goal is comping. I'm going to work on zone 1 rhythmic permutations, right? And so that's your first goal execution plan for quarter 1. That's one of them. Now, here's the catch. With this amount of specificity, we can put in multiple goals. So as before, compared to before, where on the first page we only wrote solo piano, improv, or comping, or 2 of them, we can have 3 goals here now because we are getting very specific on the step. So I'm going to allow you to pick 3 goals. So if you want to add in another goal after that, you can do that. So Nancy Nelson says for step number 5, whoops, let me go back to here. For step number 5, right-hand extensions, does this mean including 9ths, 11ths, 13ths, and sharp 5s, flat 13s, and 9s? Yes, Nancy, that's exactly right. You would start to add in those in that particular step. So let me take that step as an example for you. Let's say you know you're at that step, right? And again, you've tested yourself on the previous steps. So let's say you can harmonize the melody with chord tones. You have your shells split. So I'll go back to my ship here, for example. So I'm going to split my shells now between my hands, and I'm going to fill in with chord tones. So now I have beautiful, thick voicings, right? But I have no jazz colors. I have no jazz extensions, right? I just have chord tones. My shells are split here, and I'm filling in with chord tones. So I have no extensions or jazz colors in my voicings because up until step 4, that hasn't been required yet. I've had to build a foundation. I've had to build layers to work up to step 5. Whereas again, everyone, when you go to YouTube or you learn transcriptions, you're essentially skipping the first 4 steps of jazz piano curriculum for cocktail ballads. Right? If you're trying to learn, and if you go into a membership and you learn a transcription of the way someone else plays it, they're going to be skipping a lot of these steps. They're going to be essentially jumping you right to the most advanced thing, showing you the transcription, showing you what they're playing, but never really building a foundation with you. And that's really why 99% of students can't build traction in their playing and don't get to where they want to be. So step number 5, Nancy, for you, let's say you are there. I don't know if you are or you're not, but I would put down, for your execution plan, I will work on goal number 2, style A, ballads, step number 5, adding right-hand extensions. That's going to be your execution for quarter 1. And just so you know, for all of you, that might be the only thing you write down, right? That might be the only thing you write down for quarter 1, just that. Because just that alone in itself, that is very hard. Right? Think about it. We have to learn all of our extensions. We got to practice our 9s, right, over our minors. We got to practice our sharp 11s over our dominants. Sharp 11, we got to practice our flat 13s. And then we have to start adding all of those extensions into our solo piano playing, ballads, and picking different extensions. It's a long process, right? So here's another really good tip. As you start to get more advanced, you really want to have less goals, I'm going to say that one more time. It's very important. Are you listening? As you become more advanced and focus in on nuanced details, you want to really weed out the amount that you're practicing and focus in on one thing at the time so that you can integrate it into your body, your mind, your hands. Otherwise, it really won't happen. Ed says, is there a different strategy for people still learning scales and basic skills versus those who can comp at a basic level, for example? Is there a different strategy for people still learning scales and basic skills versus those who can comp at a basic level, for example, versus those? So, Ed, that's a great question. I think it really, really pertains to exactly what I'm talking about, if I'm understanding your question. So I think what you're saying is you're a person that is still learning scales and basic skills. Is that correct? So my whole philosophy and what I'm trying to get at here from a beginner jazz pianist who is very fresh, just very new to jazz piano, is that a lot of teachers, a lot of memberships, a lot of websites, they're going to have you learning everything. They're going to have you learning scales, chords, extensions, ruleless voicings, modes, the blues licks, right? You're really learning so much. Now, again, the whole thing that I'm going over with this guidebook here, and especially for Ed, this is such a great, great example, is that Ed, a lot of that material that I just mentioned, let's say your scales, when I comp, I have literally no use for scales. If I were to comp over any tune, and let's say you were to comp over any tune, let's say I were to play My Ship as a slow swing, I do not need any scale practice to get to my goal of comping in a band with other musicians and sounding great. So if I go to comp this, here's what it'd sound like in a medium swing style. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? So the basic scales that like foundational courses walk you through, or the foundations of jazz piano, or jazz piano foundational concepts, or beginner concepts for jazz piano, right? My philosophy here with all this teaching, and this is my philosophy, is that you can literally run towards your goal and make so much more progress if you utilize your time effectively towards what it is you want to do in life with jazz piano, right? Because 90% of what students learn does not equate to the goal that they want. So again, this is a great example. It's like you don't need all that other stuff to get to what your goal is. Now, eventually, if you want a goal of improvisation, Ed, you're going to need your scales. Like that's all scale-based. Right? So if your goal is improvisation, or anyone else on here, improvisation and scales, that's going to be the wheelhouse, right? You really don't need a lot of hand voicings. You don't need to work on your solo piano two-hand voicings or arranging. You don't need any of that, because that's not what improv is about. And that's why this goal planning session is so important. I hope you guys share this on YouTube and stuff like that, or just spread the word. But I think it's extremely important to really focus in on your goals, because it'll allow you to make like 10x your progress, because you're just working on the exact materials you need to accomplish your goal. You're not wasting time on stuff you don't need, right? Now, can you switch your goal? Absolutely. Can you work on 2 goals at once? Absolutely. But at least you're clear about what you're trying to work on to get to your real life scenario that you want to utilize music for in your life, right? Not just like, oh, let's throw everything at a student and have them learn everything about jazz piano. Maybe that's not what you want. That's not what a lot of people want, right? Some students really want to learn improv. Okay, if a student comes to me and they really want to learn improv, then I'm going to suggest my improvisation mastery course, or I will only give them improvisation things to help them better at improv in a solo piano style or a group style. If a student comes to me and they're like, hey, I'm trying to play in a band, or I really want to get better at playing in this group that I'm playing with on a weekly basis, and I'm comping a lot, we'll work on comping. So it's real. I don't need to work on their scales. I don't really need to work on their left-hand voicings that much because that's not what that entails. All right. So for all of you out there, I want you guys to write down your execution plan now for quarter one. Write down your execution plan for quarter one. Okay. And if you are listening to the replay, I'd like you all to do that as well. So if you're listening to the podcast or the replay of this on YouTube or on the podcast, go ahead and write down your execution goal. And again, write down the goal and step for what it is that you're going to be working on. Now, there's a whole other teaching segment that I'm going to be getting into for each goal, which is the tools you need to practice to accomplish that goal. And I really want to teach you how to teach yourself. That's my whole teaching philosophy. I want to teach you how to teach yourself. I want to teach you how to fish. I don't want to give you the fish. And so much jazz education out there just gives you the fish. Here's a transcription. Here's a solo. Read this solo. Play what I play. Copy what I do. Here's a way to play gospel. Play this chord. Play this voicing, right? I want you to be able to teach yourself so that you can accomplish freedom. And that's my whole philosophy. It's very different from a lot of other jazz piano educators out there. I truly believe that it leads to way more success in a much faster way. All right, with a lot less frustration, because this is the way I learned, and this is the way I accomplished my goal in my playing career. So, what this is essentially, if I'm teaching you to fish, I want you to assess what tools it is that you need to accomplish your goal. So, for example, this will be like, it's so apparent. But if you're working on, let's say, goal number 3, improvisation, and let's say we'll do a couple of these. Let's say you're working on tier 1, step 1, chord tones. What tool is it that you need to be able to, wield very effectively to be able to solo with your chord tones over a tune like My Ship, for example? Let's say if I were to solo with my chord tones over a tune like My Ship, like this, I'm going to play it in a medium swing style. Right? What do I need to be able to do that? What do you need to practice? Like that's the key question. What do you need to be able to practice to get that good, to do what I just did for step number 1? Because it's not just, I'll give you a hint. It's not just playing the tune. You don't want to just keep butting your head up against the tune and trying to play the chord tones. That's not practicing. That's just kind of failing over and over and over again, right? So the tune is the game situation. We need to practice outside the game. Athletes do not practice in the game. There's too much pressure. There's too much spontaneity. Practicing in the game leads to disaster. Can you imagine if a pitcher was trying to throw new pitches in a baseball game, right? Or if any athlete was trying to do new stuff in a game, it will lead to disaster. It's the same thing with jazz. If you're trying to practice in the tune in the game situation, you're never going to have success. So we need to take bite-sized steps outside of the game, outside the tune, to learn the tools and the components we need to be successful when we open up to tunes, right? That allows you to be successful with the tune. So in this case, we would practice our chord tones. We need to know our chord tones for the F6 chord. We need to know our chord tones for the D7. We need to know our chord tones for the G7, right? So one of the exercises you might do is just arpeggiating your chord tones up and down through the changes to the tune. Now I'm doing all root position chords here. That's not the most emulated way of, creating a game-like situation, because what I want to be able to do here is voice lead my right hand. So maybe I voice lead my different inversions of the chords, meaning I'm going to go from root position F6 to first inversion of the D7 to third inversion of my G7. This way my hand can stay around one spot and improvise. So I might go. Right, first inversion of my C7. That's emulating a practice environment that's going to be similar to my game situation. Like it's like throwing a curveball. If you're going to try to throw your curveball in a game, throw your curveball in practice lots and lots and lots of times. That's why when you get to the game, you can throw your curveball, right? Same thing with golf or any other analogy you want to make for this. Like any profession, a doctor, a surgeon. My friend is in his residency program for becoming a surgeon, right? You need to practice these skills in different ways, slowly, right, and effectively in order to start to use them in the field. Okay? So my point here is that I'm going to go into detail on the tools that you need for a lot of these steps, but sometimes you might be like, well, what do I need to practice to accomplish this goal? Try to see if you can really come up with that yourself. Like your tool sets are listed here to some degree, but you want to be able to kind of break it down and teach yourself, okay, I need to practice this tool because this is going to get me to this goal. I need to practice my bebop approaches because that's going to allow me to use my bebop approaches in the tunes. Or for your cocktail style ballads, I need to practice my split shells, or I need to practice learning my extensions so that I can add them into my cocktail ballads when I play ballads, right? On the spot, spontaneously, quick, fast, easy, without me hesitating, right? The hesitation is really what kills the music. So we have to get so comfortable with these tools that it just comes out naturally. And that's where the practice happens. That's where the hard work happens, but that's where the most gratification happens as well. When you put in the hard work and work on the tools, when you go to open up to any ballad, you can now start to add extensions with ease, with fluidity, with freedom, and pick and choose the colors that you want to create amazing arrangements yourself, right? Amazing arrangements that you could have transcribed and then someone else could learn from you because you're playing them on the spot. You're picking them on the spot. Does that make sense? All right, everyone. So that is it. That was the intro into the plan. How to use this plan. The different goals. Very simple, but very effective. Very simple and very, very effective when taken seriously throughout the year with discipline, with hard work. This will lead to more success than you have ever had in the past. I promise you. Now, some students want more. They want more exercises. They want more help with me, from me, in my materials. And that's where Jazz Piano School membership comes in, and that's where my live programs come in. If that is you, then reach out to me, right? You can join Jazz Piano School. You can join my live mastermind program. You can join my accelerator programs. And I go way more in depth into helping you with all these things, with the exercises that you need, listening to your playing, yada, yada, yada. And that's where more help comes along the line. But you don't necessarily need that. It's for the students that do want that, want to make faster progress because you're working with me. But all of this right here is gold. I promise you, it's absolute gold if you're using this and being disciplined throughout the year to really focus in on your goals and tackle them, right, with dedication and commitment rather than getting scatterbrained and kind of going over here, then over here, or not really knowing what to do. I promise you. So I haven't released the schedule yet for goal number 1, 2, and 3. I'll probably do that. What is today? Tuesday. I'll probably release that Thursday. Okay. I'm still kind of tweaking a couple of my my scheduling items because I'm very busy in January. But I will be sending that out through the email list. All of these replays will be published on the podcast. They will also be published on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Jazz Piano School. So if you want to rewatch any of this, you're welcome to do that. Besides that, guys, I hope you have a fantastic day. Email me any questions you want. Email support@jazzpianoschool.com if you have any questions about any of this. And please, please, please write down your goals. Walk through, do exactly what I told you right here, because I'm going to be diving into each one of the goals and how it's going to pertain to you and your goal, and going in depth and showing you, walking you through the steps so that you can do it on your own. Okay? My pleasure, everyone. I'm going to hang out and just adjust the settings a little bit, but thank you guys so much for being here. Thanks, Franco. Thanks, Lars. Thanks, Susanna. Thanks, Nancy, James, Ed. Mouse, everyone else who is here. I appreciate you guys' support, Mike, George, and thank you all so much, and I'll see you in the next one.
Well, if you enjoyed that video lesson, definitely go ahead and subscribe to the Jazz Piano School YouTube channel, because we release a new lesson video just like the one you saw every single week. And we have other content educational series called Tips, Tricks, and Transcriptions that we release every single week as well. And don't forget to go to jazzpianoschool.com to check out all of the other amazing free education available there. And if you're looking to take some next steps on your jazz piano journey, we do have a membership available, many courses, and even live teaching programs that allow you to work with myself and my staff of Jazz Piano School educators. My name is Brendan Lowe, creator and founder of Jazz Piano School. Thank you so much for watching, and happy practicing.